Hello, everyone. Today's story is based on Paul Cezanne. The title is Cezanne and the Apple Boy by Laurence Anholt. Cezanne and the Apple Boy, Laurence Anholt. Paul was playing with his friends when his mother brought him a letter. "Look," she said, "it is from your father." Paul had not seen his father in a long time. He knew his father was an artist who lived far away in the countryside, and Paul had exactly the same name as his father. It was written on all of his school books, Paul Cezanne. So they're both named Paul Cezanne, his father and the young boy. Paul read the letter. "Dear Paul, I would like you to visit me. The countryside is beautiful. I think you are old enough to come on a painting expedition in the mountains. With love, from your father, Paul Cezanne." Then something fell out of the envelope. It was a train ticket. His mother packed some food in a little bag. She put him on the train and kissed him goodbye. It was a long journey, and the motion of the train put Paul to sleep. When he woke up, he saw the mountain. Paul walked out of the station and into the little town. At last, he found his father's house, but there was no one home. "I'll tell you where you can find him," said a lady, halfway up the mountain, painting crazy pictures. So Paul stepped onto the winding path which led out of the town and into the mountains. It was very hot, and the path was steep. In the shade of the tree, a donkey was munching apples. Someone was talking to himself nearby. Paul peeped around the corner. "Oh!" he shouted. High on a rocky path, he saw a man as big as a bear. He was making a wild painting. He had a shaggy beard and wild eyes. Paul ran back down the path. Paul, don't you remember? I am Paul Cezanne, the same name as you. I am your father." Cezanne was a big as a mountain, but he spoke gently. "I am very pleased to see you," he said, "but I will not shake your hand. You see, I do not like anyone touching me." Then the mountain man packed up his paints and set off along the path. "Where are you going? We are going on a journey right to the top of the Blue Mountain," said Cezanne. "It is a long way, but if we follow the path, we won't get lost. We haven't got much money, but look, we have plenty of apples and plenty of paints and canvases. You look after the donkey, and I will look after you." When it grew dark, they built a fire by a little stream. "Tomorrow I will paint a picture of you," said Cezanne, "but you will have to sit as still as an apple." Then they fell asleep under the stars. When Paul woke up, Cezanne was sorting his paintings. "You see, Paul," he said, "I am inventing a new kind of painting. I make everything into simple shapes. I paint houses like boxes and trees like cones. Everything has a shape." "Well, what shape am I?" asked Paul. You are as round as a sweet little apple." They followed the winding path through a valley into a dusty village. The people in the cafe stared at Cezanne, and they laughed at his pictures. "What have you painted today?" they snorted. "A crooked house or a wobbly tree?" "You see, Paul," his father sighed, "the world doesn't understand me, and I don't understand the world. That's why I spend my time in the mountains. And that's why you are so poor, mountain man," laughed the people in the cafe. Cezanne stood up and walked toward the door. Just a moment, said a voice behind them. May I see that picture? Paul turned around. A man with a bow tie and an expensive suit was staring at his painting. This is extraordinary, he said. I would like to take this picture back to my art gallery in the city. My name is Bollard. I am an art dealer and I am always looking for exciting new work. Well, we have more paintings than we can carry, said Cezanne. Take as many as you like. I have this one and this one. So Bollard left with a huge pile of paintings. Paul ran after him. Please, Mr. Bollard, he whispered, look after these paintings. I think they are very special. I think my father has invented a new kind of painting. Then Paul helped his father pack up his paints. As they walked out of the dusty village, they could hear the people laughing. Oh, Paul, said Cezanne, sometimes life is hard as climbing a mountain. The people are right. My paintings are worth nothing at all. At last, there was no money left. I should find a job, said Cezanne. The trouble is, I'm only good at one thing. That's painting. I know something else you're good at, said Paul quietly. You are good at being a father. In the distance, Paul saw a tiny man waving his arms and shouting. When he came closer, Paul could see the man was dressed in an expensive suit with the bow tie. It was Bollard. Quick, Paul, he panted. Where's your father? My father is working, said Paul. If you want to buy a painting, you will have to talk to me. Bollard laughed. Listen, he said, everyone in Paris is talking about the mountain man. They say he has invented a new kind of painting. Of course, said Paul. My father is the greatest painter in the world. What's all of this noise? Asked Cezanne, coming around the corner. I'm trying to explain, said Bollard. I have sold every one of your paintings. All of this money is for you. I want to buy more, as many as you can paint. Cezanne stuffed the money in his pocket. Thank you very much, Mr. Bollard. I would like to shake your hand, but you see, I don't like anyone touching me. Now, if you will excuse me, Paul and I have to leave. We are nearing at the top of our mountain. Sometime life is hard, said Cezanne, but you follow your path, and at last you reach the top, shouted Paul. Then Paul and his father walked back down the mountain. When they reached the dusty village, Paul was afraid that the people would laugh, but he held himself high. I am the son of the mountain man, he whispered. The summer was ending, and the apple trees were golden brown. At last they reached the little town, and there was Cezanne's house near the station. Paul ran so fast he almost knocked over his mother, who was waiting to take him home. Oh, Paul, she said, I hardly recognize you. You have grown so tall. Well, Paul, said his father, we had a good expedition. I would like to shake your hand, but I will give you a big kiss instead, said Paul. When Paul got back to the city, he ran outside to see his friends. He didn't notice, but something fell out of his pocket. A tiny apple seed. 10 years passed. Paul walked outside where the tiny seed had grown into an apple tree, which blossomed in the spring. He thought of his father, Paul Cezanne, following his path high on the Blue Mountain. He had become a successful art dealer like Bollard, who sold his paintings all over the world, and people paid millions of dollars for the paintings of mountains, crooked houses, and piles of apples on wobbly tables. Paul Cezanne was born in 1839 and he died in 1906. Paul Cezanne spent much of his life in the beautiful countryside of Provence under the shadow of Mount St. Victor. He took long, lonely expeditions with his donkey, sleeping in barns and under the stars. Cezanne was a huge, shy man with a phobia about being touched, but he was totally devoted to two things: his art and his son, also called Paul, who was indeed the apple of his eye. Young Paul had a far better business sense than his father, and later became his unofficial agent. I hope you enjoyed the book, Paul Cezanne, or Cezanne and the Apple Boy.